At my parents' 20th anniversary, Mom joked my sister had a crush on my husband, so he exposed her affair with the neighbor in front of everyone. Before watching the video, write where you are watching it in the comments, subscribe and like so that more people can watch this video. Enjoy. I'm Emily, 32 years old, female. My husband is Ryan, 34. We've been married for 4 years, and honestly, he's my anchor. The calm, steady type who makes me feel like the world can't touch me when I'm with him. The kind of man who listens more than he talks, who fixes me coffee in the morning without asking how I take it because he already knows. But in my family, Ryan might as well have walked in with a target on his back the day we started dating. Not because of anything he did. He's polite, kind, successful in a quiet, stable way, but because of my sister, Hannah. Hannah is 29, and she has always been volatile. Growing up, she was the golden child, the pretty one, the funny one, the one who could make my parents laugh at the dinner table while I was still chewing through my homework. She was the type who got away with skipping curfew and crashing Dad's car because she'd cry hard enough to make everyone feel guilty for even being mad. And me? I was the responsible one, the one who had to set a good example, the invisible counterweight to her chaos. So when Ryan came into my life, I knew she would find a way to make it about her. At first it was subtle. Jokes about how Ryan was too handsome for me, or how I should watch out, because you might steal him. She'd say it with a laugh, but her eyes never matched the smile. Ryan always brushed it off, pulled me closer, kissed my forehead in front of her like he wanted me to know he saw it for what it was. But those digs stuck with me. They dug little holes he tried to fill with trust. When Ryan and I got married, Hannah wore a dress so close to white it made my stomach twist, and when she hugged him at the reception, she whispered loud enough for people near I to hear, "Guess you're stuck with my boring sister now." Ryan didn't flinch. He never does. He just kissed my temple and whispered back to me, "She's showing her insecurities, not yours." But even then I felt it. The shift. The way my mom laughed too hard at Hannah's comments. The way my dad avoided eye contact with me when I glared at her. So when our parents' 20th anniversary rolled around, I already had a knot in my stomach. A big family dinner, Hannah seated across from Ryan, Mom sipping wine like she's about to narrate the event, and Dad looking oblivious as usual. I didn't know yet that night would turn into the kind of scene people whisper about for years. I just knew the air already felt sharp, like everyone was waiting for someone else to bleed first. The restaurant was one of those dimly lit, overpriced places my parents only go to when they're trying to prove something. White tablecloths, a waiter who judged you if you ordered the wrong wine, and tiny portions that left Dad sneaking fries through the drive-thru later. We were all crammed around a long table. Mom was glowing in her silk blouse, drinking her third glass of Chardonnay like it was apple juice, while Dad kept telling the story of how they met, again, even though we'd heard it 1,000 times. Hannah showed up late, of course, sweeping in like she was the guest of honor. Red dress, hair perfect, smile just a little too wide. She kissed Mom's cheek dramatically, hugged Dad like she hadn't seen him in a year, then sat down right across from Ryan. Not next to me. She had to be in his direct line of sight, and from the second she sat down, it started. She leaned over the table, arm brushing accidentally close to him while asking about his job. She laughed too loud at his small jokes, the kind of polite comments he only made to keep the peace. She kept mentioning memories that didn't even belong to her, like how we once went hiking and Ryan's carried me when I twisted my ankle. She told the story like she was there, inserting herself into it until I felt like a stranger in my own life. Mom noticed, of course. My mom notices everything when it comes to Hannah. She giggled and said, Careful, Hannah. People are going to think you've got a little crush on Ryan. The table laughed. They laughed. My dad shook his head, muttered something about flattery, and even the waiter chuckled awkwardly as he poured wine. But my heart was pounding in my ears. Ryan froze. His fork clinked against the plate as he set it down, and for a second I thought he was just going to let it slide like he always does. That he'd squeeze my hand under the table, kiss my forehead later, and tell me I was imagining it. But not this time. His jaw tightened and his eyes flicked up to Hannah's face, then to my mom. The look he gave them was cold, colder than I had ever seen. "Yeah," he said finally, voice steady but sharp enough to cut. "Funny you mentioned that, because while you're joking about Hannah having a crush on me, she's been busy having an affair with the neighbor. Tom, right? The one with the motorcycle? Thought that was worth a toast?" The entire table went dead silent. Wine glasses froze midair. My mom's mouth dropped open. Dad blinked like he didn't understand English. And Hannah's smile cracked so violently it was like watching glass shatter. She laughed. Too loud, too fake. "That's not funny, Ryan. Don't joke like that." But Ryan didn't blink. "I'm not joking." And that's when the first scream came. Hannah's laugh pitched into a screech so sharp heads turned from other tables. "You're lying!" she shrieked, jabbing a finger at Ryan across the table. "You're making this up because you can't stand that people like me more than your boring little wife." The room snapped into a vacuum. My dad set his fork down slowly like it might turn into a weapon. My mom clutched her wine glass so hard I thought it might shatter. And me? I just sat there frozen because I could see in Ryan's face that he wasn't bluffing. "Hannah," Ryan said evenly, "you've been sneaking around with Tom for months. Everyone in the cul-de-sac knows it. You think people don't notice his car parked outside your place at 2 a.m? You think the way his wife left town for a week and suddenly your lights stayed on all night went unnoticed?" Gas around the table. A waiter in the corner pretended to wipe a spotless counter, but his ears were practically leaning toward us. My mom hissed, "Ryan, enough! This is not appropriate dinner conversation." But Ryan didn't even look at her. His eyes stayed locked on Hannah. "Tell them how you bragged about sneaking through his back gate so the cameras wouldn't catch you, or how you laughed about fooling everyone while his wife was away. Go on, tell them." Hannah slammed her palms onto the table, sending silverware clattering. "Shut up! Shut up!" she screamed, face blotchy red, mascara streaking down her cheeks. "You're trying to ruin me! You think you're better than me?" Then she stood so violently her chair toppled backwards. People at other tables flinched. Someone gasped when she grabbed her wine glass and hurled it at the floor. It shattered, spraying red liquid across the white tablecloth like blood. My mom jumped to her feet, trying to steady her, whispering, "Sweetheart, sit down. People are watching." But Hannah shoved her arm away so hard the glass in Mom's hand spilled onto her blouse. Ryan didn't move. Not a flinch, not a step back. He sat there steady as stone, letting her rage crash against him. I felt my throat close up because for once, my sister wasn't the one in control of the chaos. "Everyone here has always worshipped you." Hannah spat, voice cracking. "Perfect little Emily with her perfect husband. Well, guess what? He's not perfect. He's a cold, smug bastard, and you're all blind if you can't see it." She swept the bread basket off the table, rolls bouncing across the floor like grenades, and stormed toward the door. Half the restaurant stared in stunned silence, and just before she disappeared, she spun back around and screamed, "You're all gonna regret this! I swear I'll make you regret it!" The door slammed so hard the chandelier rattled, and just like that, My parents' anniversary dinner was a crime scene of broken glass, spilled wine, and a family I suddenly realized I didn't recognize anymore. The silence after Hannah stormed out was heavier than the smashed glass on the floor. Nobody moved. Nobody even breathed, it seemed, until my mom finally whispered, "What did you do to her, Ryan?" That broke me. What did he do? Ryan? Not Hannah, who just trashed a restaurant and screamed like a banshee in front of half the city. Not Hannah, who had been cheating on the neighbor for months and practically announced it to the world with her behavior. No, it was Ryan's fault for not protecting her secret. I stood up, my chair scraping loud enough to make everyone flinch. "You can't be serious!" I snapped at my mom. "You saw her. You heard her. You've been defending her chaos for years, and now you want to make him the villain?" My dad muttered something about family shouldn't air dirty laundry, but I wasn't even listening. My chest felt like it might explode. Ryan slid his hand into mine under the table, grounding me, but his face was unreadable, calm, detached, like he'd prepared for this exact storm. We left, paid our half of the bill, said nothing more, walked out to the cool night. But the quiet didn't last. The next morning my phone was vibrating so hard on the nightstand it nearly fell off. 17 missed calls from Hannah, 11 unread texts. I didn't answer, but I read the messages, lines of venom dripping down the screen. "You ruined my life." "You don't understand what you started." "Ryan is a liar. I'll prove it. If you don't fix this, I'll make sure everyone knows your secrets too." The last one made my stomach twist. My secrets? What secrets? I hadn't done anything. By the end of the day, my parents called, not to check on me, not to ask if I was okay after being screamed at in public. No, they begged me to make peace with Hannah. Dad said she was hysterical. Mom said she hadn't stopped crying since last night, that she was scared for her reputation and might do something drastic. And then, like a curse, Hannah showed up at my house. She banged on the front door with both fists, screaming my name, screaming Ryan's, threatening to call the police if we didn't come out and face her. My neighbors peeked through their blinds. Ryan calmly locked every window, every door, while I stood frozen in the hallway, listening to my sister howl like some wounded animal outside. Then came the sound of shattering. Our garden gnome, the stupid little one Ryan's mom gave us, hurled against the walkway into 100 pieces. Hannah screamed, "This is your fault," before stomping back to her car and peeling away. I felt like my body wasn't even mine anymore, just a bundle of nerves and shaking hands. Ryan wrapped his arms around me and whispered into my hair, "This isn't the end of it. She's only just starting." And God, he was right. Update. Wow, I didn't expect my post to blow up the way it did. I spent the last 24 hours curled up reading through hundreds of comments, half crying, half laughing. Y'all are unhinged, but in the best way. Some of you said I should cut Hannah off permanently. Some of you said I should get a restraining order yesterday. And some of you, my personal favorites, said I should show up at her place with popcorn and just let her spiral on her own. One comment stuck with me. The only way to beat someone like Hannah is to let them destroy themselves in the spotlight they crave. That hit me hard, because it's exactly what Ryan has been quietly preparing for. See, what I didn't mention before is that Ryan has receipts. Literal, physical receipts. Texts, photos, timestamps, all handed to him by none other than Tom's wife. Yeah, the neighbor's wife. Turns out she found out months ago and came straight to Ryan instead of confronting Hannah directly. She figured we should know what kind of snake we were dealing with. Ryan didn't tell me at first because he thought I'd crumble. He wanted to protect me. But after the dinner fiasco, after watching my own sister trash my marriage in front of our entire family. He opened the vault. Every message Hannah ever sent Tom, screenshots of her calling my husband boring and bragging about finding real excitement, selfies she took in Tom's garage, even a video where she drunkenly whispered into the camera, "I can't believe I'm getting away with this." I felt like my veins were on fire, scrolling through them, angry, humiliated, but also, God help me, satisfied. Because Hannah thought she could scream and break things and make me the villain like she always has. But this time, I had her in my hands. Ryan leaned back on the couch, calm as always, and said, "She handed us the rope. Now we let her hang herself with it." And that's when the plan started. We weren't going to leak it online. We weren't going to scream it across the neighborhood. No. We were going to let Hannah's own world implode from the inside. Carefully, deliberately, so every time she looked in the mirror, she'd see the ruin she created. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about making sure she could never use me or Ryan as her scapegoat again. And the first move? That was going to happen at her job. We spent 3 days planning like surgeons, except the blade was truth and the anesthesia was timing. Ryan refuses to do anything half-assed. When he decides, it's surgical. He wanted the exposure to sting in the one place Hannah cared about most, the neat little public life she'd built. Her job, her co-workers, her reputation. She'd always been obsessed with other people watching her, so we let an audience do the tearing. Hannah worked as a client liaison for a wedding venue. Ironic, right? Booking other people's perfect moments while she courted chaos in the dark. Her brand was warm laughter and hospitality. She was the smiling face couples posted about. That image was thin paint over whatever mess she wanted to keep hidden. We picked a Wednesday, midweek rehearsal, families milling in, her boss in and out, photographers arriving early. Ryan had the neighbor's wife. Let's call her Claire, on our side. Claire wanted nothing more than to see Hannah's smugness stripped off, and she provided receipts that made our case airtight. Timestamps, photos of Hannah slipping into Tom's garage, texts boasting about how she got away with it. We didn't need to forge anything. Hannah had been handing us the rope for months. On the day, Ryan showed up ostensibly as a vendor friend with me in tow. He wore a polite smile and a clipboard like he belonged. He handed the venue manager a sealed envelope. To watch through the front windows while he asked for a private word and then passed the manager the screenshots. I watched the manager's face go from polite curiosity to the exact shade of betrothed amusement that only people who protect public images feel when they realize their employee's been lying. Then the public part began. The manager stood up and politely addressed the rehearsal. "I'm sorry to interrupt. There is something the staff and I must clarify about an internal matter." He didn't yell. This wasn't crude. He read the relevant bits aloud, the text where Hannah bragged, the photos of her in Tom's truck at 1 a.m, the voice memo where she laughed about stealing nights. He read them like court testimony, dry and exact. The room shifted. A dozen phones lifted toward Hannah like a flock. Hannah's face went white. People she'd smiled for turned toward her like predators circling. She started to scream. Not the theatrical wail from the restaurant this time, but a raw animal sound that made people recoil. She lunged for the manager, knocking his tablet into a punch bowl. Water and plastic fluttered to the floor. A bridesmaid tried to pull her back. Hannah shoved them aside and sprinted through the venue doors into the parking lot. We thought it was over. We were wrong. Outside, she went feral. She banged on car windows, shrieking accusations, swinging at anyone who stepped in her path. Someone's side mirror was kicked off. A flower arrangement was tossed like confetti into the asphalt. She found our car, our stupid little gnomeless, wine-stained car, and clawed at the paint until her nails bled. I wanted to step forward and hold her, but Ryan stopped me. He kept his voice low and steady. "Call the police." I did. The cops arrived, and Hannah's reaction was volcanic. Sobbing, promises, threats, curses. She accused us of betrayal, of setting her up. She said she'd lose everything, her job, her friends, her family's love. She screamed a list of my sins, like I was to blame for her getting caught. People filmed it. Of course they filmed it. The footage spread faster than any rumor. By that night, our phones were buzzing with clips, screenshots, and strangers' verdicts. That night, after the adrenaline, when we were home and the TV showed shaky cell phone footage of Hannah shrieking in the lot, I sat on the couch and finally let myself breathe. I'd been waiting for something like relief, but it tasted flat. Revenge is heavy, and even when it's sweet, it sits in your stomach like blunt metal. Update. Okay, so this exploded. Y'all were right. The internet made everything 10x louder. I'm reading comments between calls from HR and a flood of DMs. Top hits from the comment section. Good. Let her fall. Lots of these, very satisfying, odd comfort in the cruelty. Be careful, OP. That's escalation territory. Thanks. Heard you. Public exposure is messy. You should have handled it privately. We tried private. She trashed a restaurant and threatened people. A few highlights from DMs. One bride-to-be begged me to untag videos because she didn't want her rehearsal footage ruined. Claire, Tom's wife, sent me a long, exhausted message thanking me for not turning it into a spectacle online. She wanted the truth to exist in calm paper, not gossip. Someone offered legal advice, how to file for restraining orders, how to document vandalism. Ryan's already ahead. We filed a police report for the parking lot assault and property damage, our car, and his lawyer is prepping paperwork. Hannah's been suspended, pending an internal investigation, and word is the venue is considering termination. But because drama doesn't sleep, Hannah escalated overnight. She left passive-aggressive voicemails from my parents, texted our neighbors accusing us of ruining her life. And last night, someone keyed liar into the side of Ryan's truck. The cops are involved. My dad called crying, saying Hannah's begging for help. My mom texted me a screenshot of a voicemail where Hannah wails, "Emily, please, you don't understand. He set me up. Please don't let them fire me." It's performative and real at the same time. Some of you told me to armor up, change routines, get a camera on the driveway, get a lawyer. We're doing all of it. Others said, don't let this define you. I want to believe that, but tonight I woke up to the sound of distant shouting outside and the taste of metal in my mouth. This isn't over. Not by a long shot. I barely slept after the anniversary dinner. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my mom's face, tight, furious, humiliated, right after my husband dropped the bomb about her and the neighbor. The silence that followed in that restaurant was louder than any screaming could have been. And then the screaming did come, but not from me. The next morning, I woke up to my phone buzzing nonstop. My sister had posted some long, dramatic Facebook rant about betrayal in the family, painting herself as the victim of some cruel setup. She wrote that my husband publicly humiliated her and twisted the truth to destroy her. She didn't mention the affair, of course, but she tagged half our relatives. By the time I read it, my inbox was flooded with messages. Cousins asking what the hell happened, aunts saying they always knew something was off, and my mom demanding I call her immediately. When I picked up, she was already sobbing. Real hysterics, like someone had died. "Do you understand what you've done to this family?" she screamed. I didn't even get a word in before she accused me of using my husband as a weapon to tear us apart. Then came the guilt tripping. How I ruined their anniversary. How I was letting jealousy of my sister destroy everything. Finally, her voice dropped sharp and venomous. "You will fix this, or I'll make sure you regret it." I hung up. My hands were shaking so bad I dropped the phone. My husband tried to hug me, but I pulled away because I wasn't done processing. It wasn't just the betrayal. It was the way they were twisting it, like I was the aggressor. By noon, things escalated. The neighbor's wife showed up at my parents' house. She had screenshots, texts between my mom and her husband, explicit stuff, promises, photos. My dad got hold of them. I only know because my cousin called me screaming that my dad had smashed a framed wedding photo on the kitchen floor and locked himself in their bedroom. My sister, being the chaos queen she is, didn't retreat. No, she doubled down. She drove to my house that night. I heard the pounding on the door before I saw her wild silhouette through the glass. She was mascara-streaked, hair a mess, yelling my name like she was about to kick the door down. My husband told me not to open it, but I couldn't help it. I needed to see what she'd say face to face. The second I cracked the door, she lunged forward, shoving me back. Her voice was hoarse from crying, but her eyes burned with rage. "You think you're better than me?" she screamed, knocking a lamp off the table. "You ruined everything! You and your perfect little husband, always looking down on me." That was the first time I realized. She wasn't just ashamed. She was dangerous. Hannah was in my living room like a tornado, knocking things off tables, screaming so loud my neighbors could probably hear every word. My husband stood in the doorway, calm as stone, but his eyes were locked on me like, "Don't break. Not now." She shoved me again harder this time until my back hit the wall. "You ruined me!" she howled, spittle flying. "Mom hates me. Dad won't even look at me. And Tom's wife sent the screenshots to everyone. Everyone knows. I have nothing because of you." Her voice cracked into a sob that didn't sound human. She collapsed to her knees, clutching her hair, rocking back and forth like a child. For 1 second, guilt punched me in the stomach. This was my sister, my blood. But then her head snapped up, eyes wild, and she hissed, "If I lose everything, so do you." That's when she grabbed the framed photo off my mantel, our wedding picture, and smashed it against the floor. Glass scattered everywhere, a shard slicing into my ankle. I gasped, not from the pain, but from the sheer symbolism of it. That photo is ours. The one thing she couldn't corrupt, and she had tried anyway. Ryan moved then. He didn't raise his voice, didn't touch her. He just pulled out his phone and said, "It's done, Hannah. You're on video. You're not coming back from this." Her head whipped toward him. That's when she saw it. Our small security camera blinking red from the corner of the ceiling. She froze. Then she screamed this guttural sound that shook me to my core. She scrambled toward the door, tripping in the shards of glass, cutting her palms as she tried to yank it open. By the time the police arrived, because yes, Ryan had already called them, she was outside, pacing in the street, barefoot, her hands streaked with blood. The neighbors were out with their phones, filming, whispering. The cops had to wrestle her into the back of the cruiser while she shrieked curses at us, at Tom, at the world. I just sat on the couch, staring at the ruined photo, blood pooling at my ankle. Ryan wrapped it in a towel, kissed my forehead, and whispered, "She can't touch us anymore." But he was wrong, because the next day, the videos surfaced, Not just from our camera, but from bystanders, neighbors, the restaurant, and the venue. Hannah screaming, breaking things, throwing wine, being dragged into a cruiser. She became a viral cautionary tale. Anniversary affair meltdown, trending on Facebook, TikTok edits mocking her cries. Mom called me once, just once. Her voice was hollow. You've destroyed your sister. Then she hung up. But here's the thing. Hannah destroyed herself. All we did was stop shielding her from the consequences. That night, Ryan picked up the broken photo frame, replaced the glass, and set it back on the mantel. The photo of us, arms around each other, smiling like the world was ours, stared back at me. For the first time in weeks, I let myself believe it again. Because, yeah, my family might be shattered. But mine, the one I chose, the one I built with Ryan, that was still standing, stronger than ever. And that was enough.